Kara Zor-El escapes the dying planet of Kyrpton. She is delayed on her way to Earth. When she gets here 24 years later, she becomes Earth's newest hero, Supergirl. Welcome to the Kyrpton Report, a Supergirl podcast brought to you by Southgate Media. I am your host, Tyler Patrick. You can find me at JTYPatrick on Twitter. So let's get started on what's going on today in the world of the Kryptonians. Welcome back to the Kyrpton Report. I am your host, Tyler, and with me today is the lovely Jania. Say hello, Jania.
Hello, everyone.
We just finished watching the pilot, and I'm pretty excited to discuss the pilot today. But before we get into the pilot, some quick news that we're going to discuss is there's been some new casting announcements. We got the announcement that they are going to do a different version of Toyman compared to just Winslow Schott, who is Win. But they're going to do, drumroll please, actor Henry, maybe you can pronounce the name correctly?
S1e1. I don't know, guys. Interpret it your own way.
But he was in Mission Impossible. He played Kittredge for those, but he will be the role of actual Winslow Schott. I'm not sure how they're going to tie that in, but he has been cast. And he's going to be, I guess, Winslow Schott Sr., so that'll be very interesting. But that was announced today.
That's cool. So
that's pretty exciting that we have that. Some other news on casting and everything, but we'll get into that in our second episode because we're going to try to do a double-packed episode. So are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, Jania. What is your first thoughts upon watching the pilot? Just spoiler. We're going to go spoiler-free, and then we'll go into spoilers. So just general thoughts.
Honestly, visually, very impactful for me. Special effects were fantastic. I loved the visual side of the pilot, especially. I know that they make it a little bit more theatrical, but it was just killer. It was killer. It sold it for me.
I have to say that I was very impressed with the pilot. One thing, I'm really excited for the series. I think it'll be different, and it's nice to see Supergirl treated as such a good character. And they put a lot into this episode to build a rich mythology and a backstory. But I think sometimes the pilots suffer because you're trying to introduce a lot in character stories, backstories, in such a short time frame.
Right.
I kind of feel like I could be wrong, but I almost feel like this was shot and was longer, and then they edited it down.
I can see that.
There's certain pacings and scenes, especially, and we'll get into it. I feel like the montage scene could have been a lot longer, and there was more to it, but they just chopped it down for time.
Clarify the montage scene there, Tyler.
It's where she's trying on her different suits, and you see her in the action.
Yeah.
It does a cutaway to the different events. I feel like that was rushed. So maybe
you
there was
wanted more from that.
And a little bit longer. Like, the cutaway scenes are short.
Right.
And you don't get to see her in action as much. There's just little parts like that. Like, then after she gets her suit, she's flying, then gets shot with the kryptonite.
Like you said, that's the hard part about doing a pilot. It's not a movie. They can't make it into a movie. They can't make it as long as a movie. So they're not going to be able to put all the details in there that they want. Because I'm sure that they had more details that they wanted to put into it. But they didn't have the time to do that. They have rules and regulations that
I almost feel like the story that we got for the pilot could have been 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you could have done a whole thing of her coming out and with the Vartox. And then at the end had a kind of a lead in towards the Department of Extra Normal Activities, or the DEO.
Yeah. It was a lot thrown into one episode, I'll give you that. It was. But like you said, that's kind of like a thing with pilots. They try and throw a lot at you, that way they can hook different people. They want to make sure that, hey, we can hook this kind of person who would probably like this angle a little bit more, the government angle, or we can hook this person with, this bad guy or whatever. That's just kind of it's a fault when it comes to pilots in general.
It's tough. I mean, certain pilots you go back and you like, and there's not a lot there. Some you go back, there's a little bit there. So it's hard to make a good balanced pilot. But yeah, so let's just start from the beginning and just discuss the episode. First of all, I want to point out, and this is kind of a broadness, I love her symbol. and I've thought about this more with her shirt, because the crest, we won't say Superman symbol, we'll just say the super crest, is actually for her and for him. It's the same family symbol.
The House of L.
But it always gets addressed as the Superman symbol.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then when you see Supergirl like merchandise and stuff, they always make it pink, and there's never been a way to distinguish her symbol like from him. And I think just the slight variations they did, that if you see this symbol, it means Supergirl.
Yeah.
It means like this show. Kind of like how, you know, with Flash in the first season, they did the darker red behind the lightning bolt, and that was like TV Flash. So this is a way of saying TV Supergirl, but just saying Supergirl.
Yeah.
To give it just that little bit of distinction. So if you did merchandising for it, that symbol and structure means Supergirl.
That's cool. Yeah. Good way to look at it.
But that was just a quick thing. But starting from the beginning, interesting that 24 years ago is when Kyrpton blew up, but they say Krypton's 2,000 light years. So I don't feel like doing the math, but how does that work?
Some things I feel like you gotta let go, you know? But yeah.
I am still trying to get used to the Kara. Like, and I do think it's funny that Kat in it will say
Kara.
And I don't know if they like. I like that. But I think it's funny because there's always the debate: is it Kara, is it Kara? Obviously, the producers and stuff chose to go the Kara way.
I think just because it's a little more unique. You know, I think you hear Kara more often than you do Kara. So, at least I have. Every time I've heard of Supergirl, it's always been Kara. You know, so to go the Kara way, I think it's just something different and unique that they can bring to the show, which is cool.
I did think it was interesting when you see baby Kal-El with his perfect curly Q as a baby. I was like, it's a little too on the nose.
We know from experience, you can't keep a baby's hair in order, guys. It just doesn't work.
But I did think it was interesting that her ship got launched into the Phantom Zone, and it was a different part of space, they said. Almost like it was a black hole. Like, everything else has been like the Phantom Zone was a dimension that Jor-El, and sometimes Jor-El and Zor-El discovered together.
Yeah.
It was a different plane of existence. But in this, it was like almost like a physical place you could go to, and that's where her ship went. And then her ship magically came out of the Phantom Zone and brought Fort Roz with her. Kind of, that's going to be a plot there. I think somebody pulled it out.
Yeah.
Or someone was trying to pull out the fort and brought out her ship on accident. Because that's going to be a thread. Now, it was really exciting, and I like this. This is something that I love that Smallville did. And this is kind of, I say Smallville because it was, without Smallville, we would have never got to this era of Flash, Arrow, Gotham,
There's no way.
Supergirl. But I love that they cast Dean Cain and Helen Slater, previous Supergirl and Superman, to be the Danvers. And I really want to see more episodes with them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Who wouldn't?
I really want to see that interaction. Is it going to be like flashbacks? Are we going to see it modern? I don't know. Like, I'm just really excited to see Dean Cain back. And speaking of Dean Cain, and this is jumping ahead a little bit, but did anyone else recognize the set, the street set, when the bank was being robbed?
I didn't. What's that on the street set?
It's the street set, I swear, from Lois and Clark.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
So I'm like, yes, but
I think it's cool. Like, it's kind of the same concept as John Wesley's ship being, in Flash being
exactly
Barry's father. Like, I love that. I love when they do that and they bring the old people back in and they're like, hey, we still recognize this person.
A quick countdown, okay? And like I said, Smallville had Dean Cain.
Yeah.
It had Margot Kidder. It had Christopher Reeves. It had Mark McClure, who was original Jimmy Olsen in the movies. Mm-hmm. It had Terrence Stamp. It had Terry Hatcher. And am I forgetting anybody else?
Smallville rocked that, though.
That's, they had a really way... And even Lois and Clark had Noel Neal and Jack Larson, I think, appear
that's cool.
On an episode of it.
I remember watching something like that with you once. I think we watched
no, it wasn't Noel Neal. It was the other... Oh, man, I feel bad. I can't remember. It was the other lady who played Lois Lane. Noel Neal was Lois's mother, with Kirk Allen as Lois's father in the 70s Superman.
Awesome.
So there's always been this tradition of, like, the past generation passing on to the young generation.
I love that. That's awesome.
So I'm glad that Supergirl's carrying that tradition,
As they should. As they should.
It's more prevalent, I think, because there's been more super series. And Helen Slater was on Smallville as well.
I think it also shows...
She played Lara.
I think it also shows that the people who were, those past characters, are cool people that they can come in and do these characters and these shows and everything. And yeah, they're not huge characters, but they're a part of that history. They're a part of, that whole line and everything. And I love that. It shows a lot about their personal character, I think.
I agree. Now getting back to the show, I think, who was it who said, was it Kara said something to Winslow about there's no such things as aliens, but yet everybody knows Superman's alien. Kind of call it out a couple times about her cousin.
That's pretty funny.
I thought that was kind of odd.
Yeah.
But here's something I thought was more odd. And I thought about this more and more. Where does her Kara personality come from? It's not like she was raised by her cousin to adapt her Clark Kent act. She's not Kara Kent, So why does when we see her in her apartment, she doesn't have her glasses on. She's acting kind of not as nerd. It's like her Kara at work is a little bit more eccentric version of herself. But why? She's not covering up for anything.
I think that she emulates Superman. I really think that she looks to him, as this basically like a role model, how she should be, how she should act and everything like that. And, she does know that he's Clark Kent, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
well, we can assume she does.
I would assume that. And if that's the case, then she knows what his persona is. So maybe she's adapted that naturally. Like, hey, I should probably be a little bit more like him to make sure I can fit in this world and nobody will, suspect that I'm, this crazy, awesome superhero.
Makes it wonder if she did anything when she was younger and just faded out her abilities.
That's very true. Another thing, too, is if she felt like she wouldn't be accepted as who she truly is, she's trying to adopt this other personality. Maybe she adopted it years and years ahead of time, and just over time she's become this, Kara personality, whatever you want to call it, in the real world, just to, fit in, just make people happy.
It's a really good observation. I really like Jimmy Olsen. I said earlier to you, I like the idea that he is now, let's try to establish himself as James Olsen, as more of the older version of the character, alluding to maybe there was this history of him as Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal, but now he's more of his own man. And I like that he's there.
I like that it's a different interpretation, because I think a lot of the interpretations of Jimmy Olsen are kind of like this scrawny little guy that just, wants to be, more than what he is, but, he's just that mousy kind of character. You know what I mean?
He's like Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Without being Spider-Man, and is smart.
Word. Yeah, totally right.
But I like it. It's a different way to go with Jimmy. I think it'll suit the series. There's always been a cool relationship idea between Jimmy and Supergirl, so we'll see where that pans out.
I could totally see that.
It was interesting when what do you call it? The whole cat's explanation of girl. Okay, I'll go with it. I'm not sold on her why she named her Supergirl.
Yeah.
But it works enough for me to not care, to be like, okay.
Yeah.
I was just like, we needed a reason why it's Supergirl, not Superwoman, because she's not really like a girl. In terms of she's obviously a young adult. So,
in my opinion, it was almost like an unneeded scene. You didn't really need to see that. You could have just seen her frustration and then just, scooped on from that and went to something else. Because, like you said, there are so many things they touched on, they could have spent more time on. So maybe their time management with that could have been, placed somewhere else that would have been more important, in my opinion. That's just me.
But definitely, like I said, I'm not bashing. I just know pilots are tough. You got a lot to establish. Sometimes, depending on the show, I feel like this is a very thick universe, and I was surprised. I had theorized before, I wonder if they were going to go a route where we don't have Superman and Supergirl is the characterization of Superman. But no, they established him, so they already established this more lived-in universe.
I was really terrified that they might not bring Superman in, where he needs to be and everything. Because in my opinion, there is no Kara without Superman.
It's tricky because in this interpretation, she stayed with the Danvers. I'm so used to the reboot of continuity when Jeff Loeb brought her back and she was Kara Kara Kent was on the farm, and that was more of the interpretation they leaned towards when they did Smallville. I was so used more to that storyline because Supergirl, we all know, has had a very unique history of changes.
Well, I mean, even without being Kara Kent, I personally feel like you can't have Supergirl without Superman because, especially like in this show, it shows you like she emulates him so much. He is the one that steps out and, makes that pathway for her to become Supergirl.
I would like to see something like maybe I don't know if I want an episode with him and her, but maybe something where he disappears or he has to leave, and it's kind of like she has to kind of fill his shoes.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of neat.
That would be cool.
I do think it's really weird that they named her sister's character Alex because of, like, Lex is in there. I don't know. Like, it's something that just gets to me right there.
I didn't even think about that.
It's
a very interesting thought.
I have a theory now. What if this takes place on Earth 4? That way we can use multiverse theory from Flash and how we can tie these universes together. So I could see Kara hanging out with Barry.
Oh, yeah. Love interest right there. I could totally see it.
I could see it being that scene like in Justice League War where she just shows up and just you see Barry, Oliver, and Alm's face just drop, and somebody's like, Cisco's like, dibs.
Cisco.
They're all just like, ugh. And that's when Oliver's like, I can't fight this.
That's funny.
No, one thing that was really cool was, I know we're kind of jumping around, but like the different costume emulations, like when she stops the bank robbers, she's wearing like red Doc Martin looking boots, which is cool because that's, to me, it's like a nod to some of the other eras and costume styles of Supergirl.
Yeah.
Like even that first outfit she walks in reminds me of like this really like 80s workout type outfit they tried to put her in the comics for a while. She's like, I'm not going out like this. But I really love the costume that she has.
It's pretty cool.
I think it's dope.
I mean, I think it's exactly what it needs to be for a TV show series. It's not too far out there, and it's not what it could be, and we all know that some Supergirl interpretations are not the most, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't cover everything completely.
They're too risque.
Yeah, too risque. There you go.
I'm like, she's not only blinding them with her power, she's drawing their attention elsewhere while she stops the troublemakers.
And let's be honest, I've never thought that was practical in the first place.
It's not practical. We could still debate for a while about if the skirt is practical or not.
The skirt is not necessarily practical. Unless she's wearing, like, really cool Spanx underneath of it, because Spanx are awesome. I mean, look at cheerleaders.
I still think she should wear pants, but that's another story. Okay?
Oh, yeah, that would be another podcast, guys.
Feyor wore pants in Man of Steel. They didn't give her, like, alternate, like, girl outfit. But,
getting back on track. What?
I'll tell you one thing that did bother me. I did not like the music choice. I'm always so picky about using, like, pop songs and stuff. I'd rather have in shows.
What spot are you talking about exactly?
When they did the Bad Mama Jamma, when they did the scene of her flying to go stop the car chase.
Okay.
I really would just like some really cool like orchestration, like a theme, like establishing a theme.
I mean, she does have a theme.
I know, but I'm just like, I want to hear that. Like, I don't.
Right, it should have been used in that part.
Like, not cheesy pop, but like it felt cheesy to me.
Yeah.
And some people are probably out there like, you're stupid, Tyler. That's okay. We're all entitled to our opinions.
I feel like, in a way, that's what podcasts are about. Giving your opinion, then other people giving it right back. The fun part.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Blake Neely is doing the music for it. Same person who scored Arrow and Flash, and they both have really cool thematic elements. So I guess I just would like to see something more from her.
You want it to be incorporated more.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that it should be.
No.
Especially if you're trying to establish a character, a show, like that theme should be thick within that. Because our subconscious, I think, attaches itself to those themes. Like, we all know the Christopher Reeve Superman theme. Like, it's there, in our head. It identifies
with that character and that interpretation. Just like when you hear the Hans Zimmer music for The Dark Knight, you think of that. You don't think Batman as much as you think of that incarnation. Now, getting back to okay, so we have the plot developing, but the whole It's kind of interesting that they're focusing on Alora, her mother, as being the one that jailed them. These prisoners in Fort Ross, which is the Kryptonian prison. Which is interesting because in most versions of comics interpretations, the Phantom Zone itself is a prison. And the fact that it's her mother, like, to me that draws such strong comparison to, Jor-El locking up Zod and his men, and then them coming after Kal-El because they couldn't go after Jor-El. So now they're like, we're going after Kara because we can't get Alora. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. And like we see that, we had Vartox, but we had the other person he was talking to. So it's like we're going to see more of these villains that are on Earth that are going to come out to stop Supergirl, and she's going to go after them. So there's a nice little thread there.
I would say that thickens up the storyline and, creates for, more openings for episodes later. I love that. It's a good thing.
I mean, the effects are top notch.
Oh my gosh, they were so good.
The blue heat vision was amazing.
I was about to say, I absolutely love the scene where, him and her are fighting, basically, and she uses her heat vision on, what is it, the axe that he has. I think that's so dope because it was very cinematic, very, believable, very well done as far as those effects go, I think. And it's especially for a TV show.
Oh, and it's different. Just like, okay, what have I always told you about, what do I not like about Hellboy 2?
I don't know, Tyler, what have you always told me?
That I hate that they took her fire and they made it regular.
Oh,
because I loved in Hellboy 1 that her fire was blue. And in this, I love that her heat vision is blue. It distinguishes it from every other version of heat vision we've seen, from the Chris Reeves, from Lois and Clark, to Smallville, to even Man of Steel. And
as much as she is, a part of Superman, and Superman is part of her, she needs to have a separation. She needs to have a difference. There needs to be things that are like, this is what distinguishes her, from him. That way, when they do see the symbol, they're like, oh, hey, that's Supergirl. When they see her heat vision, they're like, oh, hey, that's blue. That's Supergirl.
Exactly.
There has to be that difference. Otherwise, it's just going to get too muddy, and it's just not a good situation. And then you have, the one problem that I have always had was Supergirl. I'll tell you guys, okay? I've always had the problem that she was just a knockoff of Superman, and certain interpretations have made me feel more like that, but this interpretation is starting to create, her own character where she is, Supergirl and he is Superman, and they're two separate things. And I love that about the show already. That's something that I really appreciate.
And I agree with you on that because it is time for her to get carved out. And that's why I was okay with the idea if they completely remove Superman from her story.
Yeah. No, I mean, it would have been different.
So far, I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
I do want to pull back. I wonder, this is why I'm interested. Hank Henshaw's character, because the way he feels towards whole aliens, I wonder if there's going to be some backstory about him running into aliens beforehand, having a bad encounter.
That'd be cool.
Will he eventually, something happen where he'll go cybernetic and become cyber or super something? Because we know that in the comics he became cyber Superman. So I'm kind of curious. I don't want nothing to rush, though. I wouldn't mind some development,
Take your time.
Yeah, I mean, this season could be about the Fort Ross. The next season could be about something with Henshaw. Who knows?
I would love to know more about Kara's past. I would like to know more about her family. I would like to know more about why she ended up exactly where she is. What did she grow up with? What was her house like and everything like that? I want to know those things because that's what develops the character, and that's what's
the relationship between the sisters.
Yeah, because I don't really understand that completely at this point. So.
And because there's the line about where Alex says, "Did I get hired here because of her?" And he says, "You were brought in because of her, but it's because of you that you can stay." So it's kind of like this back and forth of what's gonna make her the best.
I do have the I guess the inkling, lack of a better word, that she feels like she's always lived in her shadow. Mm-hmm. Maybe even with her parents and everything like that. Just some of the things that she said and talked about, and especially when she asked her boss, that it just kind of seemed like she always felt like she's in Kara's shadow. So I would really love to see where that goes, because there's always, I feel like in a sibling relationship, there's always that one sibling that kind of feels like the other person's shadow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it doesn't always have to be the younger and the older shadow.
Exactly. So maybe because she was so different, she stood out to her parents or whatever, and they treated her differently that maybe made her feel like she was more important. So just a thought, I love to see the development with that.
So, I mean, it's a solid start to a series. It's intriguing. There's enough there to make you want to see what happens and develop more with the side characters. I love, since we're getting towards the end, that Jimmy already knew who she was and what she could do, and he's kind of there to help guide her.
It makes sense because, like what you talked about earlier, with him being James now, means that he's already been through like that younger Jimmy stage, meaning that he's already had his experience with Superman, and if he was close buddies with Superman like he's supposed to be, then of course Superman would probably mention, hey, here's my cousin, her name is blah, 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 you get what I'm saying? It
means that he might actually know about Superman as Clark, much like in a lot of the comics that Jimmy was one of the first people to know Superman was Clark.
Exactly.
So there's that whole back relationship there. But let's just jump to the end and talk about the little tag at the end, the little twist. So the general, leader of the villains who has a plan, is the blood aunt, Kara. So what I'm thinking is it's Alora's sister.
Spoilers, guys.
Which, at first we thought, is it supposed to be Lara? We had that, but they're like, no, it's not the same actress
I
from
would
the
be
beginning.
Disappointed.
But I think it's going to be one of those things where it's going to parallel, where you have Alora and her sister, who had some sort of, and now you have Kara and her adoptive sister. You're going to have some sort of parallel between these two stories of sisters.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Of why they came to war. Like, is it foreshadowing something that maybe down the line that Alex is going to lash out against Kara?
Kind of like Lex Luthor. Yeah, I know. Tyler's making a face, guys. You can't see him, but he's making a face.
And just so everyone knows out there, my wife, wanted to name a child Luthor Alexander. Hello, that's Lex Luthor backwards.
This was way before Tyler even came around in the picture, guys, just so you know.
But still.
And then I married a man who is basically Superman.
Just saying. So, how many shields out of 5 would you rate this episode?
Shields?
Yeah, over on Before the Bat, we have batarangs, flash arrow, we try to have arrowheads and lightning bolts, but Zach always forgets and we never make it through, so.
Shields. I kind of like this. And the 5 is the top?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, if I'm going from looking at the visuals are top-notch. Storyline needs a tad bit of work. It was just, like we talked about, a lot in a short period of time. But they set up for a really, really good run. So, in my opinion, I would probably say about a 4 out of 5.
See, I'm right there with you. I give it a 4. I feel like that accomplishes a lot. There's a couple, I think, missed opportunities, but I think that just falls into it's a pilot.
Yeah.
And you're trying to establish a lot and set up stuff and get your first story out there.
I feel like it's really hard to judge a pilot sometimes because
every pilot's pacing is different. It's like going back sometimes and watching a series, the first season sometimes is rough. Because it's so much introduction and get started. Like Friends. The first season of Friends is probably the weakest season.
Yeah.
Some shows like Supernatural, first season's great.
Yeah, but if you watch the pilot episode, it's not spot on. I mean, I'm a huge Supernatural fan, guys. So I love it. Like, I love the pilot. Don't get me wrong. But once again, it's not spot on because you have all of these elements that you're trying to add into this short period of time, and sometimes it doesn't work. So, you can't judge. You can't judge until you get a couple episodes in and you're like, okay, well, let's get the feel for the pacing. Let's get the feel for the storylines, the writing, and all of that. See where that's going. And then we can judge a little bit more on the show. So, my opinion, guys, is continue to give this show a chance. If you were like, a little iffy on it, keep watching. Let's watch together and find out where this is going to go. Because I think that there could be some really awesome aspects of this show. And it definitely deserves to be watched.
And I agree. So that's going to wrap up our discussion on the pilot. So what we're going to jump into now is some previous news that we haven't had a chance to really talk about. So we're going to discuss a couple things. One, it was just recently announced, and no actor has been cast, that Non will appear on Supergirl.
Tyler, for those of us who don't know who Non is, me being one of them guys, could you please explain who Non is?
He's like Zod's right-hand man. In the Christopher Reeves films, he's the big guy that doesn't talk, because in the comics, he was brain damaged, or in some he was they kind of like did a lobotomy type thing to him. So he just became kind of this big brute Kryptonian soldier. He's going to appear.
Word.
We're going to have Maxwell Lord, the character from the comics, who's going to appear, and we'll talk more about him in an upcoming episode.
Can you give us a little synopsis on who Maxwell Lord is? I do know who that is. Go ahead.
We will soon.
All right.
The more important one is, and this one I think we're going to see in the next episode, or maybe the third episode, but Mrs. Channing Tatum, Channing Tatum's wife, has been cast as
Mrs. Channing Tatum, guys.
Hey, you know how it is.
I'm Mrs. Tyler Patrick.
Exactly.
I'm not actually.
You don't get a name.
No.
But
no.
She's on that show that you like so much, The Witches of Eastwick.
Mm-hmm. East End.
Man, we stayed up too late for this. But Jenna Dewan Tatum is her real name.
Yeah, she's a cool actress.
Will be Lucy Lane.
Ah, awesome. I like her a lot. She's a great actor. You know, I think that'll be really fun to see.
I think she'll pull it off.
Yeah.
I think she has the look. And I like the kind of connective tissue, because Lucy Lane was always a important character, supporting character for Kara in the Supergirl series, because she became that person that she helped bond with, being the same age bracket. So that'll be really cool to see. Now, someone they haven't cast yet, but one of the predictions I made was I wanted to see Livewire in this series, and Livewire will be on the show.
Awesome sauce.
So that's going to be a villain that I predicted that they're having. Now, I've saved the last little bit of casting news for discussion, because they actually revealed a picture. The actor will be both T.O. Morrow, the scientist responsible for creating Red Tornado, as well as play Red Tornado.
Interesting.
Now, Jania, are you familiar with Red Tornado?
I am familiar with Red Tornado, mainly because of Young Justice.
So exactly, which is probably the most the most of Red Tornado you'll see in any animated series. He appears in Justice League Unlimited, but as far as getting to know the character and everything, that's the best route. Have you seen the picture of what Red Tornado is going to look like?
I have not.
All right, here we go.
Cool. Interesting. Not exactly what I would have expected.
I don't know how I feel, because it looks like a dude in a costume. It doesn't look like... It doesn't look like...
Ooh, yeah.
It doesn't look like it's supposed to be a robot. It looks like, you know how Vision was supposed to be like a android, but like had human features? He does look like
an android, yeah.
This looks like just a dude in a costume. If
you watch Young Justice, guys, just so you know, the character Red Tornado has a very robotic look to him. You know, his mask, he's basically like slits for eyes, slit for his mouth, very kind of Iron Man-esque when it comes to the face. But this right here is very, it is way too much like a human, like a person.
I'm gonna retweet it out so everyone can kind of look at Red Tornado again.
I'm not a huge fan of the coloration. It's like a red-brown, almost a little too brown-esque.
It looks like a suit. Like,
it does.
So I'm kind of curious.
It looks like an exoskeleton, kind of.
I'm kind of curious of where they go with this, because it's the same actor who's playing the creator, T.O. Morrow, as well as the Red Tornado.
Well, wouldn't you think that they would want to cover his face because of that? But
what I'm thinking is, what if this version is T.O. Morrow, maybe is the Red Tornado as like a character, like a hero, and then he creates the android later?
Maybe.
And that's, this is like the
precursor.
Yeah, so
it could very well be the case.
I just don't know how I feel about it, because I'm like, they need to pull off something, or else it's just going to look really kind of cheesy to me, which is sad, because so far everything I've seen out of this show I've really liked. Even that weird thing on the top of Vartex's head. But so that's the news of just getting caught up with a lot of the casting. We talked about the Toy Man and people who are coming, and we're going to try to get one more episode in if we can before episode 2 hits. So we didn't get to record the last episode. And that's just a quick review of a lot of the different mediums that Supergirl appears in, and just kind of vibing out what she's like. So from Jania and myself, this is it for today.
Yep. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I really love coming on here and talking with Tyler. Basically, these are our conversations on a regular basis.
If we just turn on a microphone, we're in the car, this is what you would get. We just basically podcast constantly. Or nerdcast.
Nerdcast. Very nerdy couple. So yeah, let us know if you enjoyed our nerdisms.
And since Jania's name's not listed, if you want to find her on Twitter, it's at Jania Music, isn't it? Jania Music, or is it Jania Patrick Music?
I think it's Jania Music. Junia, guys.
All right.
Very unique name.
So, and that's why we love her. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Kyrpton Report, the Supergirl podcast. Hit us up on Twitter at Kyrpton Report. Leave us a review on iTunes and let you know what you think, how the show can be better, your thoughts on Supergirl, and anything else you feel like chatting about. And I'll catch you next week.